All right, man. Let me know when we start, because I gotta get going to my tent. I gotta be outside of Walgreens. They have like some super sale for Black Friday. We're starting. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Android Weekly. I'm your host, Ricky, the Android guy. So, what kind of news do we have for you today? I have no idea. I haven't read it yet. Google. Google has once again ranked in the top 5 for best companies in the world to work for. It is ranked at number 2. A couple other companies worth mentioning. Microsoft is ranked at number 5. Intel barely made it at the 25th spot. And Apple is nowhere to be seen. I wonder why. But Google continues to be one of the best places in the world to work for. So that's really inspirational and a little heartbreaking that I haven't got a response back from my resume. Just saying, Google. Just saying. All right, in other news, Steve Ballmer confirms that Microsoft does intend to produce more hardware. This is a little interesting, seeing as how the other hardware that we would assume they would produce would be a phone, seeing as how they already made their tablet. I don't think they would go into laptops, but phones, Nokia stopped producing their OS in a deal with Microsoft that they would produce the hardware for their OS and for all their flagships. So for Microsoft to completely go off on their own and make their own hardware for a phone would be kind of interesting, kind of insulting to Nokia. It kind of makes me wonder, like, how long was the terms of that contract with Nokia, and if Nokia would start making other OS devices. I mean, there's definitely lots of things that could go that route. So it's kind of interesting to see, but I just think Microsoft should be wary of upsetting too many other manufacturers when they themselves go into hardware. They already had issues with Acer and a couple of other companies when they made their Surface tablet, so it's kind of interesting to see what else would happen there. Speaking of software versus hardware estimate, we have seen Samsung now is making more money off of hardware compared to Google is making off of the entire OS. And this is, one of the business differences of, hardware versus software, which one makes more money. It really depends on how many are sold, really. But Google basically makes a good amount. I mean, you're talking about in the billions. So it's just billions to billions. And right now, Samsung's actually making more off of their hardware. Now, the one thing I do not want to happen is that, either one gets cocky and thinks that they can do without the other, because I think they're the perfect merger. Samsung hardware and Google software, I believe, are the cream of the crop that you cannot find better out there in the market right now. Companies like HTC and LG have tried, and while I do, commend things like the DNA and the Nexus 4, I just don't believe they're on par just because of, if anything alone, battery, which their batteries, I've used them already. They're not that impressive. I'll just leave it at that. But yes, you guys will be sorely saddened by the battery life. Just saying. And speaking of, differences and opinions on certain products, Steve Wozniak is in the news in the tech world again. And it's about innovation and how they feel that Apple has fallen off when it comes to innovation. This, of course, is the co-founder of Apple. And, he feels that it's getting to the point where they have fallen behind even Windows. And that was, one thing that Steve Woz had said for a while, that, he did believe that Android had a lot of more innovation compared to Apple in the past year or so, ever since the Galaxy Nexus came out. However, he didn't think that Windows had overtaken Apple in terms of innovation, and now that he feels that it does, which is really kind of interesting when your own creator of the company says that. I mean, it's really getting to a point where Apple is, getting to that point. It's continuing to drop, and it's trying to do everything it can to bring Android down before Android brings it down, but it's not like it's going to work. Speaking of things that a lot of people have tried to bring Android down on, and that is malware. Now, this article I loved reading. I just wanted to point that out. because I have made a video before on the truth about viruses for Android. And please take a look at the link, hopefully we'll have for you on there. And basically, it was basically, unveiling the truth, really, that viruses aren't common on Android, and that everyone thought it was, and it just really gets a bad rap. So, statistics just came out, and Android malware from the actual Google Play Store. So keep in mind, this is from the Google Play Store itself. So not when you sideload an app, like download an APK file outside of the Google Play Store, not when you get it from a different Play Store, like say like Amazon App Store, or HTC's App Store, or anything like that, any third-party app store, and not when you also go to certain websites that I don't know why you would want to go on your phone or your tablet, but if you want to go on those risque websites, you go, feel free. So not counting all of those, how much malware actually comes from the Google Play Store? It's actually less than 1%. 0.5, guys. Malware actually comes from the Google Play Store. So thank God for this statistic, because I was just always so sick of people saying, oh my God, there's so many viruses on it. No, there's not. There's really not. And this definitely confirms it, and especially with all the bashing from Steve Ballmer, CEOs from Microsoft, as well as from Apple, and all these tech companies that just kiss Apple's, like The Verge and all these different companies, always saying that, oh, Android has so many viruses. No, it doesn't. Plain and simple. In other news, the Galaxy S3, will it be getting some features of the Note 2? Well, we've seen a couple of different things showing that that the Galaxy S3 might get some features like the multi-window feature on the Note 2, and other things. These are still just rumors, but these rumors keep coming up, and now there's saying that it might be on Android 4.1.2, and this latest rumor comes from Sam Mobile. It's a website where they do mostly Samsung rumors, and it's really interesting that they're suddenly saying, "Oh, well, what if it gets all these features?" Will it? I still doubt it. I still doubt that they would add that many features to the S3 when they're trying to sell the Note 2. It would be a great gesture, and it would actually even show that they're not like Apple as much. But in the end, it is about profitability. So I think it would be a huge customer service thing if Samsung would do it. I would be quite surprised, but we'll see how it goes. Now, what a lot of misconception is, especially in the U.S. where I live, is that Apple dominates the world, and it's actually not true at all. In terms of cell phones, actually, in China, for instance, which does have the biggest population, Android actually holds 90% of the smartphone market. This is not only ridiculous, it is insane. So it's really interesting that they were able to grab this much. If you're wondering how much iOS does, it's about 2 to 4%, depending on the quarter of this year. And it's really interesting that Android has just skyrocketed. It's actually only been a year since Android had 58% of the market over there. So from going from 1 year from 58 to 90% is pretty big. And a lot of people just have fallen in love with Android. Now this is globally, of course, as well. Android owns 70% of the market globally, but to own 90% of a market isn't just really huge, and you just have to commend them on that. Now, speaking of Android and Apple, this was possibly one of the biggest news to hit by far this last week while I was gone, and that is Apple and HTC reached a 10-year license agreement. Now, they have tried to their best to not disclose anything on this agreement, but the big thing about that is that it will be a global licensing deal, so HTC owns patents and Apple owns patents, and now they can each use each other's patents. Now the big thing is that Apple, HTC can now use all of Apple's patents, so things that maybe the US were invalid, like the bouncing patent, when you scroll all the way up and it bounces, that was a patent that Apple owned. The fact that you can search your phone with the regular built-in search and not with a third-party search, that was again a Apple owned patent. So all these different patents that HTC can now put in their phones and not have to worry about any kind of banning at all whatsoever. That is really huge. And it's really interesting to see that HTC did this. But not only that, it kind of leads me to believe that Apple wants HTC to take over the reign of Samsung, since Samsung has clearly become the victor out of these three companies. It kind of makes me lead to believe that they're trying to gunning for, oh, HTC, we want you to do better so you can take Samsung down a peg. Will they be able to do it? Well, their DNA is a great phone, but of course still has a crappy battery. So like I was saying earlier, I'll go more on that on a separate thing for you guys. Another one that I want to point out though is that of course Samsung noticed this was kind of like, well, what, you guys are doing this? Samsung is seeking to actually make Apple say everything about the patent deal in their settlement. They're actually seeking to get all the information that Apple and HTC did for the settlement, and with good reasoning, that since they're in trial with Apple and Apple has said that they should not ever have to do any kind of licensing for their patents, now they just did. So this was actually from a judicial standpoint, it was very poor on Apple's part to do this, simply because this hurts them in their trial case. And I do think Samsung will be able to get all of the details for this reason. Not only that, but in the trial, guess what was added to the trial? The trial has now added the iPhone 5, guys. Yep, that's right. Samsung might be able to get money off of every iPhone 5 sold if these patents go correctly. Now, not to be biased, the judge also allowed it to be added the Galaxy S3 and the Galaxy Nexus, even though that trial would be a further one away because it cannot go on the original part of the trial. So let me just give you guys an idea, because there's a lot of trials going on. There's not just one trial going on in the US right now. There is the first trial for the 1 billion victory that Apple had scored, which is going to be brought back on December 6th. The problem with that is that it will be taken then, and then basically the judge will have to kind of redo a certain amount of things. One, the patent that Apple won half of their money on is now considered invalid in the US. So that's going on. And then there's a whole nother lawsuit where Samsung is suing Apple over LTE parts, and that's the one that just added the iPhone 5 as well as the CS3. Just a little clarification there, just for you guys to know. Now, speaking of clarification and innovation, we have a really amazing thing that Samsung is working on. According to ISSCC schedule, that we have seen speculation that Samsung is already planning an 8-core processor for ARM chips. This is insane, guys. We don't really even have 8 cores on a consumer level for PCs. So this is really crazy that we'll have 8 cores already. It's pretty interesting, and it's definitely interesting that this will come about. I think if this can happen, that Samsung will end up taking the processor market to another level. The top one right now, I would probably say, has been NVIDIA and Qualcomm, but if Samsung does this first, then it'll be quite interesting. Now, of course, being the ISSCC, this is an event that happens in February 19th. So that's when they're set to supposedly unveil this, and if they do, an 8-core processor is pretty intimidating. Alright guys, and for our last one, I will do a separate video on this, but just to give you a little preview, Google Wireless. Google is planning on making their own data-only VoIP service in mid to late 2013. Supposedly there's been validation on this now, so the big thing is that everything will happen over data, which means that they will not have to build any towers for voice, which of course cuts a huge cost. Now they're in talks with Dish Network to split the cost to do this. And again, the reason why this makes it so big is just that it's really great for consumers. Google's all about lowering price and having no contracts. So this will be great. Again, I'll go more into a separate video, but guys, if this happens, let's all jump on it. All right. So which article or which kind of tidbit story have you been most interested in? What do you want to see have its own separate video? Let me know. And this has been brought to you by no one, because no one sponsored us yet. I don't know why. Do you guys? I don't know. Hopefully we'll get a sponsor so that then we can say it's brought to you by. Alright guys, this has been RICKY, the Android Guy.